Hello Giants fans, welcome to Giants Baseball 101. I'm Gabe Vaughn, your host. First of all, I'm sorry I said that the Giants didn't add anything to their roster in terms of who's playing in the majors. Well, J.D. Davis isn't a prospect anymore. He is actually a major league player. The Giants got him. He hit a home run today, so sorry about that. I got a little mixed up, I guess, but anyway, I still feel the Giants didn't really add any net worth to their roster because they traded Darren Ruff, and the Mets will take Ruff for Davis and trade two prospects, so where's the real extra value the Giants have added to their roster? I'm not seeing it quite yet, although Davis did show some power with his bat today in hitting a home run. But the Giants lost 5-3 to the Dodgers. This was their second straight 4-game series against the Dodgers in which they got swept. The second straight 4-game series in recent times. In the space of less than 2 weeks. In fact, in the space of just 1 week. They get swept by the Dodgers. A week goes by, they get swept by the Dodgers again, and these are both 4-game series. That is not cool at all. John Brebbia relieved Jacob Junis in the 4th inning today with 2 outs, 2 runners on base. He gave up a home run to Mookie Betts, and that's getting old, giving up home runs to another team's best hitters, because one of the key aspects of a good bullpen is the ability to get your team out of scary situations with runners on base when it matters most, and to do that even when you are facing the game's best hitters. That's just the way it is, and the Giants' bullpen is just doing a terrible job at that right now. I don't want to put too much blame on Brebbia because it hasn't always been him, but it just deepens our understanding of just how the Giants' bullpen is just ugly right now. It's not consistently able to do its thing, and it's not reliable. And the other thing is that Farhan Zaidi spoke out about what the organizational philosophy for the Giants is, and he was asked why he didn't trade Carlos Rodon, and he basically expressed some hope of the Giants getting hot again and playing good baseball in August and September, and he said, we're not going to make trades just for the sake of making them. They have to make sense for us short term and long term. That is our general philosophy. Can't get it correct word for word, but that's the gist of what he said. Not going to make trades just for the sake of making them. They have to make sense for us short term and long term, and that is what the Giants' general philosophy is. Now, I say this in good, in good respect for our general manager and everything, but I also am expressing an opinion right here that I just hold to very strongly. It's just nothing is making sense in the short term. Trades have to make sense in the short term and the long term, and not trading Carlos Rodon, that was the right thing to do, but it just didn't go far enough. The rest of the puzzle is not going to fit together, and nothing is making sense now in the short term for the Giants. It does not make sense to me that they lost to the Dodgers in every game, in 8 straight games. These were both 4-game series, just with a week of space in between each other. That does not make sense to me at all. Trades would have to make sense in the short term and in the long term, and there would just be, there were ways to make this roster, I think, make some more sense in the short term than it's making right now. And Zaidi also said there's a handful of good players on the roster who he believes have the capacity to get the Giants just a good record in August and September, but I'm not seeing the evidence of that right now. So, he did say, so what Zaidi says the organizational philosophy is that trades, he said the trades they make need to make sense for the team short term and long term. Now, you could probably deduce from that you would need to make sense of your default too. You're not doing anything. What you don't do would also have to make sense for the team short term and long term. And I mentioned I'm certainly not seeing the short term sense, and I will also confess I can't say too much about the long term right now because I just don't know the quality of the prospects the Giants got. Were they really the top prospects out there? I would be interested to know. Are these prospects the Giants got, are they the top prospects that were out there for sale? Or are they kind of close to mediocre guys that you kind of have to hope can make an impact? Option A would seem to make more long-term sense to me than option B, and nothing about what the Giants did really makes short-term sense. And you could say, well, keeping Carlos Rodon, but it's just, that's not the way the formula works in my mind. Something had to be added if you were keeping him. So nothing makes sense to me in the short term, and time alone can tell us whether any sense was made in the long term. So I still don't have an answer for what organizational philosophies does it correctly embody here. But I know that Farhan Zaidi, he thinks about his moves a lot. I'm sure he consults with the other members, but he thinks about things. It's just, I think that the Giants could have done better, and I don't understand really what's meant by, well, now I don't understand what's meant by things needing to make sense in the short term and in the long term, because, you say you're open to anything and everything, but it just, this particular thing, what fits into that category? Everything. Well, it's the opposite of the empty set, right? The full set, it includes everything. You're open to anything and everything. This particular thing was pretty weird, to say the least, to me. I mean, that's a good way of thinking about things if it's correctly understood, that at a trade deadline you're going to be open to anything and everything with what you're going to do for the roster. But when you couch it like that, that means that anything could turn up, like any combination of moves are possible. And this is just a really weird one, a really weird combination of moves. I have to say that. So that leads me to hold being open to anything in kind of a negative sense, because this obviously is included in something the Giants were open to because it happened. It happened, and it's just really weird. And with it being obvious that the Giants needed help from the bullpen, Trevor Rosenthal was traded. He was signed, and we got a little bit excited about that, at least temporarily, because it looked like Rosenthal might be able to come in and help a struggling Giants bullpen, but now he was traded, so that's kind of off now, getting help for the bullpen. And it was something, it wasn't just me. People were talking about the Giants maybe needing to pick up a couple more relievers. Nothing has happened there. Now, again, to be fair, this left-handed prospect from the Mets is a reliever. I'm sorry I forget his name here. I know that's a little embarrassing, but it's just what happened. I forgot his name, but one of the prospects from the Mets, he is a left-handed reliever, but it to me, that's still not for one thing, first of all, that's still not the same thing as getting a reliever or two that are really major league ready. And this guy, if he's in the minors, I guess he's not major league ready yet. And then I guess the second component would be when he does come up, if he does come up to the majors this year, we just have to see if he can do well, if he can pitch out of jams, if he can take care of inherited runners as well as just created runners on his own. Can he get what should be a specialty, which is really getting left-handed hitters out? According to my understanding, that's what the Giants are really looking for in him. So those questions are the ones to answer, but we're just going to have to wait and see on those. So if any outcome at the trade deadline was possible, this is just one of the weirdest. it doesn't help the roster right now. They did not get the help that they needed. And I was talking about this like 2 or 3 weeks. I don't want to exaggerate, but I seem to remember talking about this like 2 weeks in advance of the trade deadline, saying that the Giants need to get serious 4-8 at the trade deadline. And that would include not trading Carlos Rodon. It's the right thing to do. It's not a move because it's something you didn't do. The decision to not trade Carlos Rodon at the trade deadline is the right thing, but it would seem to me to be the right thing only if you do the rest of the right thing. And I was talking at least 2 weeks, I think, before the trade deadline about how the Giants needed to get serious 4-8. It was because of my observations. That didn't become less true as we got closer to the trade deadline. It became more true because the Giants went on a slide. Then the deadline comes up and they just didn't. They didn't add anything to their roster. So I don't get where it fits in with proper organizational philosophies. I don't get that it really makes a lot of short-term sense to be excited about. And I am also a little, the long-term, the future is a bit uncertain. I've got a difficult time getting excited about that when I'm seeing the thing that's right in front of me, 2022, a year that I believe the Giants could have competed for a playoff spot. I'm seeing 2022 get blown to bits right here, which it will get blown to bits if the direction of this team doesn't change, and that's going to have to be like pretty soon. The direction's going to have to change pretty soon. Now I hope you're not tired of me mentioning this, but I'm going back to the year 2019 because I believe I can compare 2022 to it very effectively. In 2019, what did the Giants do? Did they buy? No, they did not. They traded a couple of relievers, Sam Dyson and Mark Melancon. Both had pitched fairly well for the Giants in 2019. They did that to get prospects. But they also traded for Scooter Gennett from the Reds. In what way was their roster upgraded? Well, it wasn't. It wasn't upgraded at all because Gennett underperformed badly. Now, and looking at that, what did they expect Gennett to just make a late season turnaround? It's at best you're just going to have to hope for that if you want to pick him up. Because I think had the Giants just looked at and carefully considered what Gennett's statistics were for the Reds in his time with them in 2019, the picture that would give me is that he's probably not the best guy to trade for. If you looked at his statistics with the Reds in 2019, I think you would see that he just was not above mediocre. Whoa. I'm sorry, my light went off. Hold on a second. I'm sorry, that light's just on a timer. I was a little worried that was going to happen, but it's taking us a while. That's okay. Don't lose train of thought. It's just what happens when you've got a timed light. So they trade for Scooter Gennett, and his 2019 previous statistics wouldn't have warranted it. That's not buying in 2019. I don't see how that helped the Giants, and they missed the playoffs that year. And now in 2022, is it exactly the same? No, it's not exactly the same. And one other thing that's similar is that the pitching that they're hanging on to now is compared to the pitching that they were hanging on to in 2019. Well, in 2019, Madison Bumgarner and Will Smith were supposed to be the big targets at the trade deadline. Farhan Zaidi hung on to them because he believed the Giants had a chance at the playoffs. That was the right thing to do. I just don't know that it was the complete right thing to do. I mean, I'd go farther than that. In 2022, it was Carlos Rodon the Giants hung on to because if they have a chance, they want to take it. But the rest of it, it's repeating itself with 2019. There's an extra playoff spot this year, but you still got to compete to get it. And there are other teams up there that are ahead of the Giants for it that they would have to compete with. So I don't understand what's going on here. I don't understand the short-term sense that this makes. or the long-term sense. I mean, if you got to do long-term this year, if you got to sell out this year and do long-term, then it would make a lot of sense to trade Carlos Rodon. But, I mentioned I don't believe it does. This year should have been a playoff contending year. And it doesn't. They don't trade Carlos Rodon, but the roster does not get the help that it needs. And counting on things to just play themselves out and everybody to just get better, it's just kind of a poor thing to count on. Then Trevor Rosenthal went at the deadline when the Giants needed more relievers for their bullpen. It just does not seem to correlate or correspond to what they needed to me. Well, that's all for now. Thank you for watching. This has been Giants Baseball 101. Please subscribe if you have not. Please email me too with any questions or comments you might have at gabrielvon89@gmail.com. I will see you next time on Giants Baseball 101.